Hours left. Alright, let's do this. It's not recording you.
It's red.
That means it's recording.
Okay. Okay, so I'll just read it aloud, and if you need clarification, I'll just hand it over.
Sure.
Okay. Number 1. People consider this generation in the 1980s to be the me generation of status seekers. If you've got it, flaunt it, and you can have it all. What were your reactions to these statements and to the spawning of a new breed of billionaires like Donald Trump, Leona Helmsley, and Ivan Boesky, who used his theory to take control?
I would say that there's some validity in that statement of it being all about me, and being really showy and everything. I mean, everything from music, like the rappers, that's when they had like the big bling, going on. And television was, we had like things like Different Strokes and so forth, where you had like the super rich family that was so kind to take in the disadvantaged boys, and that was considered entertainment. We also had other shows, I'm not going to remember the name of it, but Roseanne Barr and John Goodman starred in it, and it was more about where the parents were like, hey, this, I'm not going to sacrifice my whole life for you. This is the way things are going to be. You can take it or lump it, or whatever. So yeah, I mean, I could see like in the cultural sense, I see that there's a lot of that. I don't know about factually in society what people generally thought of, like if they really came out that way, but I can certainly see someone studying the culture that there's some truth in that.
Okay. For the second one, labels were everything, even or especially for our children. Tom Wolfe dubbed the baby boomers as the splurge generation. Video games, aerobics, minivans, camcorders, and talk shows became part of our lives. What did you participate in during this time, and what did you think of it?
I guess I'm not sure. Like, I didn't go on any talk shows. I'm not sure what you're asking. What did I participate in?
Like, did you have video games? Did you do these activities? Did your mom have a minivan?
Got it. Okay. We did not have a minivan. However, we had many more cars than we had drivers. So there was still some excess in that, mainly because my dad could never sell a car. He just kept wanting to buy them. But video games, yes. I was there from the very first Atari, the Pong machine. I remember seeing that, which was before the 80s. But then when Atari came out, and it was Asteroids and Centipede and all those, sure. And in fact, when I was in high school, you would go to the movies, and you would go there early because you would want to play the arcade games. Like, the arcade games were part of the experience. And even in Springfield Mall across the street, not only did they have one arcade shop, they had one on each floor of the mall. And so we would go and just go back and forth, and that was kind of like the social time to do that. Definitely I participated in that. Were there any other things?
What did you think of it? Did you like it a lot? Did you do it all the time?
Yeah, I liked it a lot. I don't think that I did it as much as teenagers seem to do it now. But yeah, I mean, I did it, and it wasn't just teenagers. I remember not my parents, but like my older cousins, and when they'd come to visit, we would spend a lot of time doing it. So yeah, I mean, I know the other thing. I had a handheld football game that was just like little dashes. It was nothing, no people or anything like that. Well, they've released them as retro games now. You can buy them for like $5 at Target. But I was really obsessed with the football game, and I got really good at that. So yeah, definitely.
Okay. Reagan declared a war on drugs. Kermit didn't find it easy to be green. Hospital costs rose. We lost many of our finest towns to AIDS, which before the decade ended spread to Black and Hispanic women, and unemployment rose. What did you find the most difficult problem occurring during this period? Did you discuss it with family and friends?
I do remember I graduated from high school in 1986, and I do remember that there was a lot of attention about the dangers of dating, and people would, it was kind of like a big fear in a sense, not just because of AIDS, but because for a long time people felt like it was based on lifestyle, not just if you didn't have a certain lifestyle as a drug user, or if you weren't gay, then you weren't really at risk. But then as the years went on, people realized that wasn't really the case, and it kind of brought a lot more attention to other STDs as well. So I do remember that there was a lot of fear about relationships and dating. I remember starting to, when I would read books, that I would see these things come as plot points out in books, and I remember feeling anxious, reading about other people who, suffered through problems like that. I don't know if I remembered it at the time, but I do know now, looking back, that the American public really didn't have a lot of information about it from the government. So a lot of it was speculation, and people just kind of talking, with each other about it. There was lots on college campuses, I remember especially talking about it. There was also some fear because the Challenger disaster happened my senior year, and that really affected a lot of us. I think for a lot of kids, 9/11 is a life-changing experience. For us, the shuttle disaster truly was a life-changing experience. And many of us watched it live on television, and we had never had anything American fail before. And that was really kind of a wake-up call for us.
Well, that connects to the next question. Columbia, America's first reusable spacecraft, was launched in 1981. A sad day in our history was January 28, 1986, when the Space Shuttle Challenger exploded 74 seconds after liftoff at Cape Canaveral, Florida, killing 7 astronauts, including school teachers. Christia McAuliffe. Do you remember this day? Where were you? What did you and your families or friends think?
I remember this day really well. I believe that it was a teacher work day. And I was home by myself, hanging out like everyone does on a teacher work day. And I was watching it on television. And I saw when it happened, when I saw the explosion, I realized that something went horribly wrong. It didn't occur to me that everyone had instantly died. I felt like it took me a while listening to the broadcast to realize that no one could have parachuted out of that. No one could have survived that. And I remember calling my best friend, who was also home, in tears, and and both of us just, going on about it. There was a lot of talk about it because there was a teacher on board. There was a lot of talk about it in schools. They had all kinds of lesson plans, and they encouraged schools to watch it live and everything. And I think probably half my teachers said something like, I think I would have liked to do it, something like that. And so it really did kind of hit home to us. It's one of those things that you do really remember. I don't know if I have all the details right, but I definitely remember how I felt about it, which was just extremely upset.
Okay, I know you'll enjoy this one as you're a librarian. America was reading. Popular fiction authors included espionage writers Ken Follett, Robert Ludlum, Frederick Forsyth, Martin True Smith, Tom Clancy, and John le Carre. Scott Turow turned the legal thriller around and paved the way for the mega legal thrillers of the 90s when he wrote Presumed Innocent. Of the 13 books which sold over 1 million copies, Stephen King, Tom Clancy, and Daniel Steele wrote 10 of them. Tom Wolfe, Toni Morrison, Laurie McCurdy, James Michener, John Irving, and Alice Walker were among the popular writers of the decade. Nonfiction books became bestsellers. And a list of nonfiction books. Did you read any of these books? What did you think about them?
I definitely read John Grisham. I thought it was a masterpiece. I thought it was great. It was really thrilling. It taught you a little bit about law at the same time, so that was really fun. I didn't read them at the time, but I read Toni Morrison afterwards. A lot of my friends were into Stephen King. I was like my stomach can't handle in scary movies or whatever, was a big deal to see. Actually, scary movies were really popular during that time too. Seems like every weekend all we were seeing was a Friday the 13th or something like that. But so yeah, I think reading became much more mainstream. But a lot of the books that you talk about they're not considered literary classics, but they're considered classics of popular reading today. So I think it was probably a pretty rich time in publishing.
Team sports for kids were really popular in the beginning of the 70s and going through the present. 80s mothers ran carpools after work, kids had after school and weekend cheerleading, baseball, football, soccer, gym, dance, jazz, you name it. Nerds became hot comedy in the 1980s. What fashion did you participate in, and what items did you collect?
I had leg warmers. I probably had like 12 pair of leg warmers. I could find, and I watched Fame on television, and so I had, really tight jeans with the leg warmers on, and I would have the Izod shirt with the collar popped up. I used to tease my hair where you would just take it straight up, hit the hairspray, take your comb, and just tease it so that it would stand straight up like a rooster. Absolutely. You'd pay to see that picture now, wouldn't you? So yeah, fashion like that. I never did the Madonna thing, and I never did the Michael Jackson thing, but I had my cousins again. I had my little cousin would never take off his Michael Jackson glove. And I had a friend who was definitely wanted to be a little mini Madonna with all the lace, and stuff in her hair and stuff like that. So yeah. It would be what teenagers do, most teenagers, I think, probably participated in those things.
Did you collect any toys like the Rubik's Cube, Cabbage dolls?
My sister, she probably had about 10 Cabbage Patch dolls. I had a Rubik's Cube, and at one point I was able to solve it. I had to have a cheat sheet book. I remember buying the book and going, I'm going to learn this. I can't do it now. But yeah, I did that. Let's see. I know I do remember that there seemed to be a lot of fads, like Smurfs were really big, and even though it was on TV as a little kids show, teenagers would collect the little Smurf figurines. You could buy them at drugstores and stuff like that. There was a trend where you would get these little plastic, really cheap looking little plastic rings, and you could connect them all together and then make bracelets with different patterns, but they were really cheap. You'd go and you'd buy a bag of them for, $1, and they would have 200 little plastic things in them. And my friends and I at lunch, we would sit there and we'd make little things to wear around our wrists. And stickers were really popular for some reason. We would go to the variety store in Old Town, and there would be, they'd have these walls filled with all kinds of really weird looking stickers. And we would just buy the stickers and then just put them on everything. I don't know what, but there was a girl, Laura Kearns, I remember. She had a portfolio of just stickers. Anything you ever wanted, she could find it and point to it. And I don't think she put them on anything. She just collected them. So anyway, I know.
Okay. Cable was born, and MTV, originally intended to be promos for albums, had an enormous impact on music and young people. The digital compact disc, CD, revolutionized the music industry. Dances learned on MTV included slam dancing, lambada, and breakdancing. Harlem's gay, black, and Latino males imitated the beautiful jet set with their then underground voguing, a pose dance popularized by Madonna, incorporating the struts and stances of high fashion models. Pop, rock, new wave, punk, country, and especially rap or hip-hop became popular in the 80s. Rap was new in the late 80s and the 90s. Rap had started in prison 20 years earlier by jailed black inmates who, in the absence of instruments, turned poetic meter into musical rhythm. The early rap heard on the ghetto streets was abrasive and laced with hostility towards society. Early important groups are Milli Vanilli, MC Hammer, Vanilla Ice, and LA Cool J. What music did you listen to? Did your friends like the same? And did you suffer any peer pressure from your choices?
I actually did a lot of throwback music. I was into Bob Dylan and stuff like that in 70s mainly when I was in high school. Although I did like U2, and U2 was really starting to get big in the 80s. They really hit more 1990, but I liked U2 from their very first album, so I'm a true fan. The stuff that I couldn't stand was stuff like Boy George and stuff like that, and Wham and stuff, because it was really poppy, and I didn't get into that. A lot of people liked it. I never got into Bon Jovi. A lot of people were into Bon Jovi. I never liked that either. But I did like some rap, like the Sugar Hill Gang when they would first do their big raps. We all learned the words to that. And I remember, I think it was in our prom, we all danced to Super Freak, which is really embarrassing. But no, I didn't have any peer pressure. Most of my friends, some of them liked, one of my friends loved Rick Springfield, and I thought he was just a lightweight. The Cars and the Police, all of our friends, we really were into those. So not so much the pop rock, maybe a little bit more, and nothing really punk-ish. I think I was probably too sheltered to get into that.
Right. In 1981, VCR sales rose by 72% in 12 months. By 1989, 60% of Americans' households with televisions received cable service. What TV show influenced your life the most? Like, what could you not live without?
Gosh, in the 80s, there was a lot of television. I remember LA Law was a drama at night that I really watched it with my mom especially. What other TV? We watched The Cosby Show. That was fun. I didn't watch too much television. I think I was probably reading more or being isolated up in my room with my music. But I mean, probably most of the hit shows I knew about. I liked The Simpsons, and my mom hated The Simpsons, so I had to kind of pretend, like I didn't know about it, but I definitely watched that. And having the VCR, I remember my dad bought the VCR to get ready for the Olympics, and that was a big deal in our house to be able to tape something and watch it later. Crazy.
Okay. Where were you when John Lennon died? How did you and your friends react to this?
I was in high school. I remember walking to my bus stop, and my friend Suzanne Henry, she came up and she said, "Had you heard?" And I said, "No," and she started crying, and it was hard for her to even say what it was. And she said, John Lennon's been murdered." And I was like, "What?" And I got my information from her, and we talked about it all the way, and it was huge. And I just remember being so disappointed because even though the Beatles were broken up by then, I thought maybe someday I'd get to see them, and the thought that I wouldn't get to see them was, really devastating.
Last question. What one or two statements would you like to tell this generation that teaches them something about your experience surviving the 1980s?
It's okay. Well, the 80s was a lot about having fun, I think. But it was the first time where I think having fun really did kind of come with some consequences. I think sometimes in the 60s and 70s there also was a lot of emphasis on having fun without a lot of the consequences there. So we were really kind of starting to make that transition to grow up. And I would say maybe today's generation, with all the terrorism fears and things like that, the wars that have been going on, that maybe it isn't so easy to have such a carefree existence. And so I would say to try and seek some of that out for yourselves, because there's you're only young once, and don't do anything crazy, but make sure that that you're taking time to enjoy your life as you live it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right,
Miss Anna.
awesome.